Hallo, willkommen zurück zum Straßensprechen mit Kate. Heute ist in meinem lieben Freitag der 10. Oktober 2025. Alright, that's enough German for now. I thought it'd be a fun way to open the show in German, because this was such a special adventure for me. This story starts a few days before I left for Germany. I was in Mobile, Alabama for work. While there, I had a soft-shell crab po' boy and gumbo for dinner. If you don't know what a soft-shell crab is, at the time, neither did I. Soft-shell crab is a crab caught after it sheds its shell and before the new one hardens. The crab is deep-fried whole, served to you in the shape of a crab. To keep this story short, Wednesday, September 24th, I experienced food poisoning for the first time. Having food poisoning 2 days before you leave to go abroad for the first time alone is a really bad timing, especially when you want to be adventurous with your diet. Despite the setback, I was able to recover. While not feeling great, I still managed to make my flight on the evening of Friday, September 26th, from Charlotte, North Carolina, to Munich, Germany. Upon boarding the plane is where the adventure starts. I've never been on a flight this long before. The flight to Germany was roughly 8.5-hour red-eye, so I would leave at 6 p.m. at night and arrive in Germany at 9:15 on the following morning, Saturday, September 27th. The vibes upon boarding were just immaculate. One of those days where you can really feel yourself accomplishing the dreams you previously set for yourself. When it comes to my entertainment for the flight, I watched the movie Broke. It came out this year and stars Dennis Quaid. I wish I would have heard about this movie much earlier in the year, because I would have liked to see it in theaters. I thought it was that good. After that, I watched the first half of Forrest Gump with dinner, before trying to catch some shut-eye. When it comes to sleeping on a plane, I only managed to fall asleep for about a 20-minute cat nap in the 3 to 4 hours I sat there with my eyes closed. As someone who struggles to sleep while lying in my own bed, sleeping in the middle suite between two grown men is not my ideal situation. I will for sure be buying a sleep mask before the next grand adventure like this one. Even with the lack of sleep, as soon as the light from the sun started creeping into the horizon in front of the plane, my adrenaline started to rise. 2 hours before landing, we were served a snack, and I finished Forrest Gump as we pulled into the gate in Munich. Then the adventure was really off to the races. I stepped off the plane onto German soil with nothing but a backpack, suitcase, and a list of things I wanted to see. Everything beyond that first step was simply going to be figured out as I went along. What I mean by that is, I did zero prep when it comes to how to navigate trains, trams, buses, or any other sort of transportation that I was going to see. Rather idiotic to most others in the world, for me, standing in a foreign airport where nothing is in English and trying to figure out how to buy a train ticket while in a groggy haze is what makes for the real adventure of life. At the time I boarded the S1 train to Munich Hauptbahnhof, it was 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Lucky for me, because I have a work phone that carries 5 gigabytes of international data per month, I was never stranded with needing Wi-Fi when I'm trying to navigate my way around, which really never did happen. It was comforting to know that in my back pocket, I could always use that, easing much of that first day stress I felt in Munich. When first getting on the train, I wasn't entirely sure if it was the right one. The airport train connector had me a little bit more turned around than I would have liked. Once I knew I was on the right train, I was able to sit down for a 45-minute ride, which allowed me to get my bearings straight. That ride was well needed, as the countryside views of rural Germany allowed me to take a step back, telling myself to relax, which allowed me to shift into the mindset of letting the journey come naturally. From my first impression on that train ride, I wrote, "Everything matches. It fits. I like it." While we chugged along, I saw little villages where the houses all matched. White stucco walls, red tile roofs. I even saw one of those starter wagons from Farming Simulator that was always my first purchase when playing the game growing up. When I got to my stop, I stepped off the train into Munich, Germany. I walked 400 meters to my hostel from the train station, where there was going to be a real moment of truth on how this adventure was going to go. I booked my room for this hostel back in June. I never received the confirmation email I was supposed to a week before I arrived, so I walked up to the counter, not knowing if I really had a room or not. Keep this in mind in the next episode when I'm in Austria. To keep it short, yes, I had a room. To backtrack a little bit, while on the plane I took a melatonin pill, which I hoped would help knock me out and fall asleep, which did not work, but it did cause me to sweat profusely, which happens every time I take melatonin. Pairing that with how hot it was on the plane, I felt like a disgusting pig with no way to shower when I arrived at the hostel. The issue being my room wouldn't be ready until 3 p.m., so I could only drop off my bags, take a poor man's shower, and change my clothes. With my room not ready yet, I was pushed back out into Munich to start exploring. The first goal of mine was to find a bank where I would exchange the $400 that I brought with me. It was Saturday, so I didn't know how easy that would be. I walked to the closest bank that said it would be open. Open means that the room with the ATM in it is open, so a bust when it comes to what I was attempting to do. I did in that bank, and my first conversation with someone in German, where I simply said, "Hallo, sprechen Sie English?" where she said yes, then directed me in English, where I would be able to trade my cash for euros. From the bank, I walked over to the subway station and rode the subway downtown, just 2 stations away. That little walk and train ride downtown really helped me to find my bearings. I was able to pinpoint my north, south, east, and west, as well as put my phone in my pocket and just walk where I had to go. That walk taught me some customary lessons when it comes to walking down the streets of Munich. There's absolutely no jaywalking. You wait for the light to turn green before you walk across the road, and it's open container everywhere. I found the bank that the lady told me to go to, but again they only had ATMs open, so I was unable to find a teller to help me. Fighting off the exhaustion and being extremely hungry, I said screw it. I don't want to deal with this right now, so I took out some euros from the ATM and went about the rest of my day. Already being at the train station meant I was only a few blocks away from the city center. I walked in that direction to find something to eat. Quoting again from my notes, am currently in desperate need of water, caffeine, and a real meal. I had hit a serious wall when it came to energy. Down a side street I saw a sign with a burger on it, and bolted in that direction. Not a very German food as my first meal, but it provided me with the sustenance I needed to fulfill the rest of my day. While having that meal, I accidentally grabbed sparkling water out of the fridge. I had only ever had sparkling water once in my life, before that. In Key West when I was 7 years old. I hated it then, but I found it to be rather refreshing this time around. A very shocking first sip that caught me off guard. It hit the spot that I needed in the moment. I shoveled down the food, but took some extra time after eating to sit there and steady myself. Then I got up to walk around the city center and take in some of the architectural beauty of the old city. It didn't matter the street or the direction I walked in. There was always another building worth looking at around every corner. As it was an Oktoberfest Saturday, the streets were absolutely slammed with people. Let me tell you that German people know how to walk. They're fast, aggressive, and personal space does not matter in the slightest. Before leaving the city center, I stopped for a beer in an outdoor beer garden where I had a half-liter from Augustiner Brau München, which was opened in 1328. So this beer has been made since well before America was known to be a continent. I later found out from a local Bavarian man that this is the preferred beer of many Bavarian people. For those of you that don't know, Bavaria, or Bayern in German, is the state of which Munich is the capital. I returned back to the hostel at 3 to retrieve my belongings and make my bed in the room I would be staying in. The room that I would be staying in was a 6-bed room with a private bath, much better than the 20-bedroom communal bath that I thought I was staying in, like when I went to Philadelphia. At the time of entering my room, it was 3:35 p.m., which meant outside of my catnap, I had been awake for roughly 27 hours straight. My body was beat, but I knew if I held on for just a few more hours, it would set me up for a much better second day. So I took some time to do some mental housekeeping before going out to find another beer. First and foremost was to figure out how the train ticket I bought worked. I purchased a 12-stop ticket, which I then found out means I could use it for 12 rides around Munich. Rather simple now that I'm mentally conscious again, but I never used the puncher at the platform at the time, so I was not using it correctly. Hand up, that one was on me. Yes, I paid for all the rides I took. I just didn't use the ticket how it was intended. I cleaned that up on the rest of my travels. I then went out to find a beer before bed to help me stay awake as long as possible. My last stop of the day was to the Augustiner Brau of the same beer I had earlier. An observation I had on the walk was not a single person so far that day did I see wearing open-toed shoes. So I felt like kind of a clown in the moment, but it was only 55 degrees, so it could have been more of a weather thing than anything. After a beer and watching a bunch of folks drinking lederhosens and dirndls, I retired from my first day of adventure at 8 p.m. The following morning was Sunday, September 29th. Even for how tired I was from my super long day the day before, I struggled to sleep throughout the night, waking up multiple times from people coming and going from the room, With the disturbances, I slept till about 5:30 a.m. That was when the group that was staying in the room with me decided it was time to leave. With them gathering their belongings and hitting the road, I decided it was time for me to get up as well. My day started with a pounding headache as I was still trying to restabilize my fluid intake from food poisoning and the extra long flight. I spent a good 30 minutes planning out the day's adventure. Then out the door I went. My Sunday morning started with a 2-mile walk in a northwestern direction throughout the neighborhoods of Munich. The first stop of the day was the Backspielhaus for a coffee with milk and a breakfast sandwich. As I watched the suburb wake up around me, life moves so much differently in Munich. The amount of people that come through the bakery to buy a coffee, loaf of bread, or other baked goods was just simply different. Every single person through the door came by foot, bike, or tram. Not a single car. Really a remarkable thing to witness from the eye of an American, who grew up needing a car to do literally everything. After my coffee shop window breakfast, it was time for some tourism. So I walked down the block to the Schloss Nymphenburg. In German, Schloss means castle or palace. Schloss Nymphenburg, in its original design, was finished in 1679. Over the years, the palace was again and again expanded on as the generations went down the line, adding on to the main buildings, gardens, the main crescent, and outbuildings. The wealth and power of Munich and surrounding Bavaria grew, as did the premise, as it was the country/summer residence to the Wittelsbach family, who were the head of state in Bavaria until 1918. The grounds of the estate sit on 200 hectares, or about 500 acres, in what is now mostly a park surrounding the property. As I walked the grounds, I was stunned by the effort and beauty put into every part of the property, much the way I feel as I walk around the Biltmore back in Asheville, which was designed to resemble many of these European castles, like this one. On the ground, there are many smaller castles that I was able to enter, such as the Pogadenburg, Amalienburg, and Badenburg. Truly a remarkable and stunning place, showing the class and air of the aristocracy of Bavaria's past, showing power and dominance in a way through art that is to me and my mind unimaginable to try and create today. The way the ceilings are painted, the effort in even the smallest of detail. It just isn't how the world we live in today works. For that reason is why it will be immortalized in time forever. After the palace, it was time for me to travel to my second tourism destination of the day, boarding a train to move further northwest to the city of Dachau. Just saying Dachau, every single person on planet Earth should know where I was going. If it doesn't ring a bell to you, that is a problem. But the answer is the Nazi concentration camp that was near the city of Dachau. Simply being on the property itself, you can feel the weight of what happened in this place was horrible. The pain, suffering, and mistreatment of human beings holds in the air to this day and will forever. An extremely depressing place. As a big war/history buff, this was a place that I think was extremely important for me to see personally. One of the most covered conversations in school growing up was the Holocaust. 11 million people died during the Holocaust in Nazi Germany. To see these places in person will shock you terrified of how fast all can go wrong in the world. The documented records say only 41,500 people died in the camp. However, when you are standing inside the crematorium on the property, it is very clear that there were many, many more that died here. To give context for scale, the prisoner camp sits on about 5 acres of land. At the time of liberation, there were 30,000 prisoners living in the camp. That math just simply doesn't add up when it comes to the death toll. Another place that for very different reasons will forever be immortalized because of its significant importance to the history of Bavaria and also the world. By far the most depressing thing I did throughout the tenure of my trip. On a much brighter note, after taking the train back into Munich, my last tourist destination of the day was Oktoberfest, what originally started in 1810 as a celebration for the marriage of Crown Prince Ludwig and his wife. It is now the largest beer festival in the world, attracting over 6.5 million people in 2025. The first thing I did on the grounds was have a schnitzel sandwich. Then I walked the grounds and through a few different beer tents to figure out what the hell was going on. I felt out of place not having lederhosens on. This first day of Oktoberfest was to simply get the lay of the land. For how insane the partying I saw was, the more I could learn, the better. It suited me for the following weekend. After much confusion of not knowing where I could get a beer, I saw some folks enter what looked to be an alley, but was actually the Ammer Biergarten, where I found myself a beer and a conversation. Much to the German beer hall style, the setting is all tables and benches aligned in rows to maximize space and communal conversation. Where I sat was quickly joined by two middle-aged men, one hailing from Hungary and the other was born and raised in Munich. The latter works for a company in Austin, Texas, so they both spoke good English. These two men were very crucial to how the rest of my trip went. As we spoke, they couldn't believe that I would come all this way to explore the world by myself. They were both very impressed with how daring I was at 24 years old to leave the country alone, travel halfway around the world to a place where I didn't know a soul, and just do the damn thing. They taught me how Oktoberfest works, gave me the confidence in the little German I knew that I'd be able to get around fine. Most importantly though, they gave me that friendly conversation I needed to start talking to strangers from different lands. To the both of you, Prost. I want to throw a little fun fact in here about Oktoberfest before I carry on with my night. In America, Oktoberfest is a style of beer you can order. In Germany, Oktoberfest is still the same beer they drink the rest of the year from the local breweries. The only difference is it is on average 1.5 to 2% stronger than the standard brewed beer the rest of the year. 1 stein, or 1 liter, of Oktoberfest equates to 7 Miller Lights on average, but by far heavier in the gut. The second place the night led me was to a table across the way. As I was pissing in a trough, a 17-year-old English kid started talking my ear off. I thought the kid was 30 for Christ's sakes, a really funny chap with a real love for beer. He introduced me to his whole family and a young couple from Illinois that was also sitting at the table, conversating with them. The couple, Tasha and Jeremy, were on a 40-person bus tour throughout Bavaria and the surrounding region. I had a great time chatting with them. After the Brits left, the three of us decided to go find a seat inside one of the beer tents, where the real party happens. We shared a stein inside before they decided to retire for the night. I thought I had one more in me, so I meandered my way through the crowd to find a bench/table that had enough room for me to get up on. I ordered myself one more stein and rocked out with rotating groups of young Germans who were all having the time of their lives. For context before I turn this off, because I've been talking for way too long, inside the massive beer tents is the same bench seating I discussed earlier. On a stage in the center of the room is a band on an elevated platform performing all sorts of music. In the massive crowds, everyone is standing on these benches while dancing, cheering, and snorting peppermint powder. I legitimately mean peppermint powder too. It really catches a guy like me off guard when you look over and there's a group of people in their mid-60s tapping out lines of peppermint on their hands. From what I remember, it was the craziest type of partying in any sense of the form that I've ever witnessed with my own eyes. My first night in Oktoberfest accelerated from me scoping things out, all the way to finding myself in the middle of the party. The start of an adventure that forever altered my outlook on life, as this is the first part of a 3-part series on my adventures around Munich, Bavaria, and Austria. As always, thank you for listening. I love you.